Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Q's Views, and today we are continuing with the Monster Book series with the Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual 2 for 4th edition. So we have the cover here, and many of us know who this is. Good old Demogorgon. So nice artwork on the cover. Looks fantastic to me. Let's go ahead and dive on in and take a look at these monsters and creatures and let's have a fun discussion regarding them. Monster Manual 2. And here we have the table of contents. And once again, I'll go ahead and bring the book closer so that way you can take a look at the artists. In this case, they're called the interior illustrations or illustrators. All right, here we have monsters from A to Z and some pretty crazy artwork, as we will notice throughout the book. And here we have all your typical monster information. And now we'll go ahead and get into the monsters. And as always, we won't go through every single monster in great detail. I will pick out a few here and there that I've used in campaigns, or monsters that I thought about using in campaigns but didn't, or ones maybe I didn't originally consider to be in a campaign but then ended up using them. All right, here so we have angels, various types of angels, classic monsters such as the Ankeg, giant ants, archons, and we have various archons. Have you used any archons in your campaign? And if so, how are they utilized? And of course, with archons, we have various different kinds, basically elemental based creatures that seem to have enchantments based on their particular element. Barghests are also classic creatures. Another fantastic piece of artwork. And of course, as I've said before, D&D would not be D&D without beholders. Various types of beholders. The Bullywug are also a classic monster that come from all the way back from the original Fiend Folio. Centaurs. Centipedes are always good to use, and some more great artwork. So what were some of your favorite creatures to use out of this book? If you indeed use creatures out of this book, was it creatures such as the cockatrice or the colossus? Maybe some other classic creatures such as the Coatl? Were there creatures that maybe you felt shouldn't be in this book? You felt maybe there was too much emphasis put on demons or too much emphasis put on dragons, since we always get dragons. Well, there's Dagon. Maybe the typical monsters were given too much attention, while the more obscure monsters maybe weren't giving enough attention. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the treatment of demons in this book? I know in most books for me, the coverage of demons has been pretty good. What do you feel about this book? I like seeing creatures such as the Dretch and the Gnaw Demon and the Khazrith. The Neldrazu are always great. But how about yourself? How do you feel about the utilization? How about devils as well? I know we'll be approaching them very soon. Demons and devils. And here's a question. How do you feel about the great war between devils and demons? If you're going to pick a side, would you rather choose the side of the demons or the devils? Here we are into the devils now. For me, I don't know, it's a really tough decision for me because, obviously one is ran off of, more in line with law. Although evil, there's a law, there's a social order to it. All of them have kind of a social order, but demons seem to be way more structured, of course. Devils seem to be more structured than demons, as demons seem to have just a hierarchy of, fear and who's the most powerful. While in the devil world, the most powerful aren't necessarily the ones that are ruling, although they are indeed in the upper echelon of power. Sometimes, it's who can make the best deals, who has the best alliances, who uses their intelligences to create those alliances and to create partnerships with other devils, so they can have kind of like a veto against certain other devils that they may not be friendly with or feel that may be intrusive to their territory. Here we are in dragons, various other dragons, such as the Iron Dragon. I've always liked silver dragons. I've always been very partial to the metallic dragons. And various types of drakes as well. Drakos, and here's a fantastic piece of artwork. I'll try to get that in frame a little better so you can see. The Duergar. I don't know, for me it's just creature type after creature type. The Eladrin. Just really good stuff. Elementals from beginning to end in this book. And I think the utilization for them for 4th edition, in my opinion, is pretty good. Is it flawless? No, it's not flawless. It has its issues, and any of us who's played 4th edition long enough know what that is. But man, overall, I would have to say that's been pretty well executed. If not necessarily in the stats, then definitely for me in the aesthetic representation of the artwork. Because, in D&D Adventure, stats and statistics and rules and stuff, those can be altered. Those can be changed for the campaign. We can homebrew things to our liking to make them fit the way we play, more effectively. So that's all well and fine. But for me, well, you have to have good stats. You want things intact. You want things to flow right, of course. However, a good illustrative representation of these amazing creatures for me always helps bring them to light and always helps to bring them to life. And it really helps me to be able to describe them in a way for the campaign that the players will really envision the creatures in their midst. Rather than feeling like, okay, this is adventure with this monster, they'll say like, no, this is our reality with this in this adventure. We've encountered this creature, and the details really help to place them in our minds. We see a picture like this, and automatically, me as a DM, I don't know about you, those who are DMs that may be watching, but for me, it automatically gives me a great stepping off point, not just in their description, but to include them in various ways within the campaign, to describe them illustratively, without necessarily giving away what the creature is. Like, for example, here with the homunculus, I could say, well, it has this, 2 types of texture on the skin. And they have almost like this owl-shaped face with a mouth that seems to have a mustache coming down over it. And along its belly, it has this thin line with some spines that come off the center. The abdomen center of this creature seems to be nice and smooth, while just around the abdominal section where the abdominals would be, to the outer side, to the flank of this creature's torso, it's more rough, and it has these lines kind of uniformly going out in each direction down towards the legs. And and you can kind of describe the creature without giving it away what it is for me anyways, the more details you get in the illustration. And that way too, it really helps the players to think. Now, if you have really drab or really poorly done artwork, for me, it makes it really difficult. Well, maybe not difficult, because I can always fill in the blanks, but it makes it less convenient, should I say, to come up with some decent verbal illustrations on the fly for these fantastic monsters and allow them to be portrayed in a way that will help them to feel more realistic or surrealistic to the players. And for me, the more details you've got, the more that you can immerse your players into their world. Here we have the lichens, the were-boar and the were-tiger. Pretty cool, armed with some cool weapons. Mammoths are always fun to use. Cause massive amounts of damage. Marut, pretty cool. The myconids, or aka the mushroom people. How do you feel about mushroom people? Have you ever used those in a campaign? How about the Neogi? Have you used those? Or the Nothic? I think the Nothic are quite cool actually. Onis, which have lineage and lore just as ancient as the creatures themselves, as far as it goes back forever. Oozes are another form of classic monsters that have been around forever. Just some really cool stuff in these books. Are there creatures in this book that you specifically went out of your way to avoid? Now, I know for me, in the earlier versions of Dungeons and Dragons, the rust monster to an unprepared party was indeed a nightmare. To have your armor and your weapons or even shields made useless right before your very eyes was always a detriment to the party. You know, maybe not so much physically. So like if you got attacked by the rust monster, you know, and your sword all instantly became rusted and useless, that wasn't so much damaging to them physically, but it's definitely damaging to the morale. And so, you know, sometimes damage to morale can be more impactful to damage than physical damage. And those of you DMs, especially those that come from old school Dungeons and Dragons, will know what I'm talking about. To lose hit points is one thing, but to lose in the morale, that can really set a party back. It can really start to create not only problems with each individual player, but it can cause players within the party. If you have someone doubting themselves or second guessing themselves, or maybe someone who is, you know, doesn't have very good skill points or to check, you know, versus, you know, to check like their, if I believe a morale check would be is a wisdom check. So, you know, if you fail, or even a charisma, you can fail even, you know, it can affect your charisma, it can affect your wisdom, it can affect the choices that you make in, you know, in any situation. It can even affect the way that, you know, affect your alignment. Oftentimes, even with, you know, classes such as like the paladin, you know, if you have a paladin that loses morale, oftentimes they'll make the wrong decision, a decision that oftentimes will lead them away from their paladin path and lead them to a path of self-destruction and utter ruin. A lot of times they end up going rogue, and but because, you know, they do end up losing their paladin's, you know, skills, those kinds of things, but oftentimes they're still powerful enough that if they change completely into a path of darkness, they could become a real threat and a real menace to society. We have some Warforged Titans, which I think are really cool. The Will-O-Wisp, which is a creature that's been around forever. Of course, we have Winter Wolves. I have used these in a campaign, and they're fantastic. You can use, you know, the Winter Wolf, you know, to overwhelm a party really quickly. But at the same time, It's one of those challenges that can seem very overwhelming at first. It may have a party going, oh my, how many are these things, but there's also one of those kinds of encounters where as long as they keep their composure and as long as they stick together, they'll be fine. You have the Zorn, and of course we all know dice rolls played a big role. If you roll a fumble, what do you do about that? Some racial traits. Again, we have monsters by level, which is a fantastic way to help align monsters for the strength of the party and vice versa. And there we go. This is Monster Manual 2 for 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Do you hear something? Brave adventurers scour the dungeon in search of treasure, but around the next dark corner, something terrible and hungry waits for them. What will it be this time? This Dungeons & Dragons core rulebook contains a horde of monsters to unleash upon your campaign world and its greatest heroes. It includes monsters appropriate for all levels of play. Terrorize your players with such classic creatures as silver dragons, frost giants, and rust monsters. There we go with the rust monster. Threaten them with new variants of existing 4th edition monsters, including the new beholders, demons, and lycanthropes. Surprise them with never-before-seen monsters such as the Star Spawn, the Witherling, and the Chaos Shard. Your D&D game will never be the same. So there we have it, the Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual 2 for 4th edition. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you in future videos. Feel free to leave your comments down below. Let me know what creatures you like to use out of this book, which ones you avoid using out of this book. Maybe you had some creatures that you were hesitant in using and used them and liked them. Or maybe there were creatures you were excited to use and used them and you were let down. Let's have a fun discussion. Until next time, take care, stay safe, stay well, take care of each other. Have a good one.